It's definitely been something that's made me feel scared at times because I know anything could happen to her at any point. I think those mom instincts definitely kick in as soon as she's born.
There's things that are done to try to make this system work that I don't enjoy.
I think the whole process is pretty disturbing.
If someone tried to take her, it would be devastating.
It affects them, both baby and the mom.
I couldn't imagine that I participated in it for so long.
I would do anything possible to get her back, to keep her safe. We'd do absolutely anything to keep her safe.
Welcome. My name is Jane-Velez Mitchell, and we are having a panel discussion of the powerful film Baby Hairs with the amazingly talented filmmaker Susan Rosenzweig, the editor Jason Uson, and someone who appeared in the film, Austin Farm Sanctuary Facilities Manager Tiger Leonard. Rachel Nobles, who is a supporter of the Austin Farm Sanctuary, also joins us. Now, I want to start out by just saying something to clarify. The Save Movement and UnChained, in reviewing and discussing this amazing film, want to make very crystal clear we advocate 100% veganism and state unequivocally that dairy kills animals, is destroying the planet through climate change and pollution, is destroying people's health, contributing to human world hunger, and is complicit in the exploitation of slaughterhouse workers. Dairy is the meat industry. For the record, there's no need for anyone to ever steal the breast milk of another species. There's no nice way to kill an animal who doesn't want to die. And no matter what kind of farm they come from, and I am not speaking of any particular dairy farm mentioned in the film or not mentioned in the film. Obviously, I'm not there and cannot address those specific situations. But as a collective, dairy cows are not dying of old age. The general industry practice is when they are considered spent, they are sent to slaughter. That being said, let's talk about this amazing film. And I am very happy to say that our incredibly talented filmmaker, who is here trying to make this world a better place, is willing to make her film even more powerful by clarifying the film's message. So she is open to this discussion, and I applaud her for that. We don't want to just live in a vegan bubble where we're all talking to each other, and meanwhile, we're not moving anyone forward. And we are all in a journey. It's a process, not an event. So that being said, I'd like to introduce Susan Rosenzweig. She is a writer-director who is passionate about anything that has the power to help others, especially those with no voice of their own. She is also an award-winning creative director with more than 20 years of experience in all kinds of advertising and marketing, TV, print, digital, social media, blog writing, and content creation. And she's been vegan for about 6 years. Susan, thank you for joining us. Really incredible use of imagery to make a point. And this is something I think our movement really needs. We need to start using the techniques that people who are exploiting animals are using to make a message of kindness. So tell us what inspired you to make this film.
Yeah, thank you, Jane. And I'm really excited to talk about this. And I hear and see all the comments about the fact that there is not humane dairy. First and foremost, I want to say I 100% agree. I am 100% vegan. I am a huge animal advocate, have been. I actually became a vegetarian when I was 9 because I loved animals so much and didn't want to hurt them. And I was outraged about 6 years ago when I learned about what was really going on in factory farming, and like with eggs and dairy that I had leaned on for most of my life, thinking that I wasn't hurting animals. So I made this film to send that message, that information out to people who were very much, I'm assuming, like me, thought that they were making good choices. And having an advertising background and coming from that world of knowing how storytelling is not only done, but speaking to consumers that are, going to them where they are and trying to help them connect the dots. I purposely told the story the way that we did. It is not, in my mind, advocating what they're calling in the film, or what Jim talks about, humane dairy. He is a small dairy farmer. He's also a veterinarian. He has a very interesting perspective. Obviously, he feels one way about it. My goal with this film was to lay out all the facts and let people make the decision for themselves. I'm very aware that my target is not vegans. They're not necessarily vegetarians. They may not actually know any of this stuff. So I'm trying to connect the dots, or put the information out there so people can connect the dots for themselves.
And let me ask you this. Have you any evidence that you've converted people, that people who are mindlessly drinking dairy milk, you make a good point in the film, it's on the decline, that they went, wow, I'm not going to drink dairy anymore?
Well, I should let Jason probably speak to that, because he's one of many people that have made changes since the film. Almost everyone that worked on this film was not vegetarian or vegan when they started, have either given up dairy, gone vegan, changed their diets. And tons of people have reached out to me. I lost count of how many people told me they gave up dairy immediately after watching the film. And these are meat-eating people. These are not, I think sometimes as vegans, we can be in an echo chamber where we know all of this, and it's so easy for us to say, cut it all out. But I know from my own experience that people make changes in steps. And if you guilt them or try to guilt them into something, they're more inclined to just bury their heads in the sand and not make any changes and ignore the facts. So, but I'll let Jason speak a little bit to that from his perspective, since he came onto the film after I had already done all the shooting, and was kind enough to join and help with the crusade.
And Jason, I want to say, very well edited. Having been in the news media for 40 years, I can tell you, I know a well edited film, and it was very well edited.
Well, thanks.
He's the best.
Well, thank you, Susan. I will say this, I am the target audience for this film. And I've known Susan for a long time. We've worked on many projects together. And when she brought this to me, I'm a big animal lover, but I'm not a vegan, right? And so she brought this film to me, and after working with her for so long and doing this film, I started thinking differently. Like, what am I doing? What have I been missing out on all my life? So I started, obviously this film is very educational, started thinking about it, looking at this. I will tell you, to this day, I don't drink milk. Very seldom will I eat meat. If I have cheese, it's like, I have to look for, I think about it. I have to look at it in an alternative, because now I know. And one of my favorite quotes is, when you know better, you do better. And I think that goes for all of us, especially someone like me I've had a lifestyle of my life, and now this is on me. Now I have to think. I have to look at the evidence that's put in front of me and make a conscious decision myself to make a change. And that's what I've done. And it's literally changed my life. This film has changed my life. So thank you, Susan.
And you'll probably live longer as well. Some great points in the film, pretty much quoting, all mothers love their babies. Mother's milk is to feed babies. Cows don't produce milk unless they have a baby, which shockingly, I think most people don't know, or certainly don't think about. But
I did not know that.
Yeah.
I did not know that for all the years I was a vegetarian.
Yeah.
I just thought cows made milk.
Yeah, I think most people feel that way. And I also like what you said about milk sales being on the decline. In fact, if it wasn't for the U.S. government propping it up, it would probably be out with the extraordinary growth in plant-based milks, whether it's cashew milk, soy milk, almond milk, rice milk, oat milk, which just had a commercial at the Super Bowl, which was won by a plant-based quarterback, Tom Brady. And you also make the point, our body's not designed to consume the breast milk of another species. So let's get the issue that has people a little bit concerned. I'll just put it that way. Would you be willing and open to adjusting, because there's only a small percentage of the film that quotes the dairy farmer. He is informational testimony. He's giving good information. We're not going to live in a world where we can't hear what people are saying in terms of facts and figures. But when it sort of crosses over into, well, we found an easier, softer way. There's a saying in sobriety, in 12-step, we thought we could find an easier, softer way, but we could not. We stood at the turning point and we had to let go with complete abandonment. That is the essential motto of sobriety. In other words, it's like being a little bit pregnant. Either you are vegan or you're not. And so there seemed to be, and I understand it, having been in the news business and been forced for many years to say, well, you've got to get the other side. And we do that at Jane Unchained. Like, if we're going to do a story about a protest outside a particular private company, we will say, we invite that company on anytime. We'd love to dialogue with you. And, for legal protection, we include a link to a statement that they may have, because that is the journalistic credo. But there's that. And then there's a right and there's a wrong. There are certain things in life that are either right or they're wrong, and never the twain shall meet. So I guess what some of the criticism was that in talking to this guy about, well, we run a small dairy, blah, 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 it had the perhaps unintentional consequence of implying that there is a nice way to do the wrong thing. I just want you to address that and maybe discuss how you'd be willing to tweak that, because it's a very small comment in the entire film, which has got an incredible message other than that.
Yeah, well, first I should say this is my first film. It was for a class that I took because I wanted to make this film and I didn't know where to start. I've been in the advertising business industry for over 20 years, like you said. I've made tons of TV commercials with huge teams with me, including talented people like Jason. But to do this on my own, I wanted to take a class and really learn about, using a camera and directing. And so I had an assignment to do 15 minutes. I did it totally on my own budget, and with the donated time and energies of a lot of wonderful people. So this is my first attempt. I'm happy to consider doing, editing it or doing something different with it. I've been open to that from the very beginning. And look, you're absolutely right, Jane. What I was doing was showing a balanced approach and having Jim gives his opinion. I think probably the part that where I walked a line is probably in the last super on there about consider shopping local. That's because, and I'm not open. I mean, I'm not against editing any of this. Let me be very clear. I'm happy to edit anything, and I'm happy to make a longer film. I'm happy to do a lot of things given the opportunity and budget. But I really was trying to find a balanced approach and kind of meet people where they are. And if people are not even considering giving up dairy to begin with, if they could at least take the first step and shop local, I figured that's better than them buying supermarket milk. To me, it's about, baby steps to start with. I guess I'm more of a realist in that way. I don't expect everybody to go vegan overnight. That would be fantastic. And what I'm finding is that by not demanding that and giving people alternatives, they actually are giving up dairy entirely. But yes, to answer your question, I'm completely open to changes.
Well, I want to applaud you, because I can't tell you how many people would get defensive and say, wait, no, this is you make your own film. And, it takes a lot of courage and sophistication and good-heartedness to say, hey, I'm hearing you. It's my first film. Okay, I'll tweak it a little bit. So I applaud you for that. And we certainly can, collaborate or dialogue in any way. I'd be of service to you to refine the message, because I think why people are concerned is that so many people will hang on to the thread of a fantasy. Okay. Mm-hmm. You say, hey, if you care about world hunger or ending world hunger, because animals are eating most of the food out there, 75% of the soy, more than 50% of the corn, and children are dying of hunger. As a matter of fact, just today, I sent a tweet to somebody in the New York Times who was writing an article about hunger. Well, look at this issue. 75% of soy is being consumed by farmed animals who produce very little soy. We're 7.8 billion humans, killing 80 billion animals every year. So the concern is that people will hang on to whatever thread to continue their behavior. And the alternatives are out there: oat milk, soy milk, rice milk, hemp milk, cashew milk, which happens to be my favorite this month, almond milk. I mean, the lists are endless. And that the suggestion is, and you do mention that, you have people in the film saying, there's oat milk and there's soy milk, is to give them that as the option, as opposed to something that really, at the end of the day, in general, the fact is that very few, if any, cows are dying of old age. When they're considered spent, doesn't matter whether they're on a small dairy or a large dairy, they're sent to be slaughtered. Additionally, there have been undercover investigations, and I'm not talking about anybody you mentioned in your film. Not. Want to make that clear. But throughout the course of animal rights activism in recent years, there have been undercover investigations at local dairies that have uncovered the same kind of abuse. Ultimately, if we're drinking the milk, the babies aren't. And to me, that was the most important part. And that's what, and like I said, I had a 15-minute limit. I could only get in so much in this film at the time that I was making it. But that, to me, was the most important part of it to get across and that's why the film is called Baby Hers. That's why the focus is on mother and child. It was about really creating awareness that cows only make milk for their babies. And if we are taking it, not only are we taking it from the babies, but we are kidnapping those babies from their mothers the moment they're born. And that was the part that I really wanted to communicate. It's one of the reasons and why I invited Tiger today, because I know Tiger is also kind of the audience that I think I would take liberty and say I think he's the audience that I was speaking to with this film, and he's come to really get to know these animals. And Tiger, if you want it at some point, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about. I'd love to hear from Tiger.
Yeah, about your experience with the cows.
So I'll address this in a couple of different ways. So first of all, Jane, to think that somebody's going to stop cold turkey, that's silly. Everybody's on their own journey. And I think Jason pointed that out. He's now mentally thinking about, milk. I don't want to do milk now. I don't want to do cheese. Am I doing the right thing? This is a process. This isn't something that happens overnight. So we need to keep that part in mind.
Sure.
From my perspective, watching this, I was a milk drinker. I was a meat eater. Now drink almond milk, now drink oat milk. I don't drink milk anymore. So this film had an impact on me. And the biggest part is the relationship the cows had. And so I got to see Bo. I got to see Bo before they brought Reba and Valentine. Then I got to see him afterwards. And it was a pretty cool thing to watch. It was neat to watch him become the dad and fight me all the time with horns. But it was a cool. This is a cool thing. This film, it gives you the options. It takes you to start the journey. Like she said, there's a target audience. It's not the people that are already vegans. They already know this. It's the people that aren't. It's to make you stop and think, am I doing the right thing here? If I don't drink milk today and I drink milk tomorrow, okay, bad on me. But if I don't drink milk the next day, I'm getting better. And that's kind of the goal here. It's kind of to make people understand you can do this in a better way. And to me, that's kind of the whole point of this film.
I think we're all in agreement. I think we're in agreement that it's a process, not an event for most people. There are people who do have that moment. I'll tell you, I went vegan. I wish I had my vegan date the way I have my sobriety date. And my sobriety date is April Fool's Day, and it's very appropriate because I used to make a fool of myself. And God willing, one step at a time, knocking on wood, I'll be 26 years sober in April 1st. It is a process, not an event. And as one of my heroes, Gene Bauer, says, we accept anyone wherever they are on the journey. So this is a very important conversation. Nonetheless, you can still create the process without compromising the essential choice. I'll just use sobriety as an example. When I first got sober, many years ago, I wasn't aware that vanilla had alcohol, that, I should look out for a food that has wine poured on it at the end before they serve it. I learned, it's like when I first went vegan, I didn't know that. I learned that, whey is animal products. I didn't even know that. So we're all on the journey, but nonetheless, sobriety is sobriety. One sip is too much, 1,000 isn't enough. So while we do understand that it's a process, it's also an event in the sense that either it is or it isn't. And so what I guess the recommendations are is to just show people that actually the alternative isn't having near beer or kombucha with a little alcohol. It's just having sparkling water or something that isn't alcohol at all. So I use that analogy because I think it's very appropriate, because we have evidence to show that dairy is addictive. There is a hormone, or there is an ingredient, and Dr. Neil Barnard, the head of Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, wrote a whole book about this. There is a substance in milk that is designed by nature to get the calves, the calves, to drink the milk, and it's got an addictive component, a morphine-like component that it makes people, when they start drinking dairy, get hooked on it. And additionally, the dairy itself is not good for people. It's one of the most undiagnosed allergies in the world. And the cows, the existence of the cows themselves is contributing to climate change and pollution and all of these other things. So I applaud you for being willing to massage that message, to just make it clear. And again, that's fantastic.
Well, and also I was aware of the fact there's a lot of amazing documentaries and films out there that talk about all these different aspects, which, I mean, when I watched Forks Over Knives, and I already was vegan, but learned how they've found that that dairy causes cancer. I just was like, well, why would anybody continue to eat this product? But
and it's
again,
extremely high in cholesterol, which is a leading contributor to heart disease, which prior to COVID was America's leading killer. There's a million reasons. Now, let's suffice it to say, so we don't just only talk about that you have graciously opened the door to working with the Save Movement and others who might be able to help you with the segment of that small film, not that you need help, but to tailor it, to clarify the message, essentially.
I'm totally open to anything. Yes.
Yes. Well, wonderful. Now, one of the things that I think is so important is that your film is very well crafted. And I have been saying this for years. The people who are promoting food that is destroying our planet are using the most sophisticated techniques. I have a background in my father was in advertising. He had an agency on Madison Avenue. I know a lot of people in the advertising industry. They have ways to subliminally connect eating animals with everything from family values to patriotism to upward mobility, keeping up with the Joneses. For women, it's maternal values and motherhood. For men, it's masculinity. And these are all subliminal that are injected into commercials. And so you know that because you come from the advertising industry. And the way you crafted your film used some of those techniques to tremendous power. And that was great. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, thank you, first of all. Secondly, I laugh because I remember I got one small piece of criticism I got in some review, because most of the reviews were amazing, which was really wonderful. But one small piece of criticism was that I sort of tugged on the heartstrings to using the baby mine music from Dumbo to try to manipulate how people feel. And I was like, damn straight I did. I'm not gonna apologize for that. Yes, we've been doing that in advertising and just in media forever about all sorts of things. It was important to me to tell a story that people, especially mothers, could relate to about being a mother and how they would feel if their baby was ripped out of their arms the moment they gave birth to them. So I think what's good for the goose is good for the gander, which is a horrible expression to use in this conversation.
That's your next film. Your next film could be getting rid of speciesist phrases. They're
Right.
all embedded in our brains over the years. Let's go to some of the comments. Sarah Siegel says dairy is sexual violence. Now, this is another reason why this film is so important, is that we need to create the commonalities between other movements. Dairy is the ultimate violation of the female reproductive system.
Yes.
In fact, I was quoted in some animal agriculture magazine as things vegans say. And I was happy to be quoted, and they said, "Look what this broad said," and I had said, we have to stop raping these cows. None of these animals are making love on these factory farms. And it was a quote that was put in a dairy industry or an animal agriculture industry publication as, "Look what they're saying now." But the truth is that's true. Mm-hmm. No, none of these cows are making love on these factory farms. They are being raped. It's, in fact, an industry term is rape rack. Mm-hmm. And nonetheless, it is so hard to get feminists to make the connection. I was at the Women's March, and I was talking to some women at the famous Women's March, which I will always remember to my dying day that I was there. It was an amazing experience, the largest group of people I've ever seen in my life. But a lot of the feminists, didn't want to talk about it. They were, yeah, okay. And I hear this all the time. I mean, in an attempt to add vegan options and to make the diets, for example, of certain galas that celebrate the feminist movement or LGBTQ. I'm an out lesbian. Lesbian events. There's precious little. I want to be wrong, but in my personal experience, there's not a lot of open-mindedness to hearing the message that this is the ultimate violation of the female reproductive system. And if you're a feminist or a woman, you shouldn't be co-signing it.
I agree 100%. I think that's why this has resonated with more women, in that it comes from, look, I'm a proponent of the belief that there are only two emotions in the world, fear and love. And while a lot of people will go the route of fear to try to create change and to convince people to make changes, I took the route of love. That's sort of my MO. I wanted to tap into people's emotion of love and love for their children, love for animals, love for all beings. I think the way to reach a lot of those women is through this message, the fact that, getting them to understand that it's a mother-child issue. I would hope that would, obviously I've not spoken to that target, but I would hope that would have a little more impact, and having them see that you're 100% right. It's a feminist issue as well. It definitely is.
And Jason, I want to go back to you and ask you a little bit, having also being in the industry and using all those techniques to evoke emotion. How were you able to craft this film to evoke the emotion of the mother and the human mother and baby breastfeeding, and then compare it instantly to the cow mother and baby nuzzling and being together and then being ripped apart so that humans can steal the breast milk?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Coming into this film and looking at the footage, in my past, my mother has passed away. So that was an emotional part for me to be a part of this film, to see the mother, sibling kind of relationship. And me, with my mother being passed away, it kind of resonated with me on a deep level. And then seeing this, what happens with a cow and their baby, it's the same. The emotions are the same. And we can't deny that. And what this film does is really show us the emotions of these animals, and they're the same with us. So going through the footage and looking at this film and crafting this film with Susan came from a really personal place for me. So Yeah. So it was very personal for me to see that and help Susan create this.
I think this is a very important conversation because it's really powerfully crafted. B, you are open to adjusting the small part of the film where you are allowing this dairy farmer to speak about local dairies are okay, and adjusting that to really hone the message that dairy is unnecessary, dairy is wrong, and we don't encourage any dairy, whether it comes from down the block or a factory farm. So that I applaud you for that. Now, that being said, I think that your talents are such that you need to be making more films because you understand the techniques that are used to convert people that have been honed over time. We are, as a movement, struggling to send this message. And listen, there are some incredible messages. My heroes are the filmmakers, whether it's Sean Munson of Earthlings and Dominion, the young man who produced Dominion, a group of people, Forks Over Knives, which you mentioned, Cowspiracy, What the Health. I'll throw in Jane UnChained's documentary, Countdown to Year Zero. I mean, we're all doing what we can. But what I noticed in this film was that it had that commercial je ne sais quoi. It had that thing that commercials have where they really know how to hit those points, those emotion points. They're dealing subliminally. And whether it's the milk commercials, the got milk commercials or milk, it does something good, whatever those things are. These are almost computer programs. They have gotten it down to a science. Whereas most of the vegan messaging is, we're doing the best we can, we're reinventing the world each time. We need to start using some of these techniques. I'll give you an example. I mean, I read a great book by a former, I believe, managing editor of the New York Times talking about how BuzzFeed figured out clickbait by using computer programs. They would do an article, they'd put out 10 headlines, they'd see which headlines were resonating, and then they would pick the headline that was resonating the most. They would find out what are those ingredients in that headline, do it again, to the point where BuzzFeed has become one of the most successful news outlets, taking articles that were originally written by the New York Times, and they spent years researching them, putting a new headline on and getting more views. So that's the kind of sophistication that we need to send our message.
Yeah, and that is my goal, Jane. It's funny because you and I have not discussed this, but I'm so glad you're bringing it up. My goal is to do this on a much bigger level. First and foremost, what I really want to do is create. I see somebody made a comment about that there needs to be a commercial about this. My first goal, in addition to distribution, is to be able to do a PSA with this. I really want a 30 or 60-second PSA. That's been my goal all along. I know Jason knows that. That's the next step. Because yes, that's how you get to, millions and millions of people, to get them to know this, to really know the true story of what's happening and where dairy comes from. Most people, we're all sort of in our own world, and especially me living in Austin now, where it's such a vegan friendly city. We think everybody knows what we know, but the majority of the world, the majority of America even, really has no idea and doesn't really understand why there's so many dairy alternatives and what's going on. And I really want to not only do a PSA with this so that more people will know, but I'd like to be able to be doing a series of short films and PSAs. The positive voices of the world don't have the money like the dairy industry does, or the big agriculture or any kind of farming has, and they don't have the budget. I mean, we don't have the budgets like they do. So my hope is to partner with brands and companies so that I can start doing that on a more regular basis. I would like to be doing that full time.
Yes.
That is my goal. So
yeah, and we just got a comment that said, this is happening with every species. It's not just dairy cows, it's pigs. Their babies are taken away. Mothers are kept in pig gestation crates, which I'll never forget the first time, I think it was back in the 80s, that I saw a pig gestation crate, a single one. And I said, no, this is impossible. Nobody would design something this cruel. And then I saw a next image was thousands of them, tens of thousands in a warehouse. And I thought, this is a horror movie. This is real. And I think that image made me more determined to devote my life to animal activism. There are certain images that I remember, and that was one of them. And I couldn't believe that humans could be so cruel. But of course, when you look back in history, the level of cruelty that humans have exhibited on each other and on animals is mind-boggling. So
what did it for me is the chick culling. The culling of baby chicks, of throwing them into grinders. I'd like that to be my next film, to be honest with you. I cannot believe that. And I don't know how to tell that story yet, but I'm going to figure it out. That is a horror that most people don't know and don't want to know. But the fact that that goes on and billions of little souls are killed like that every minute of every day, just like horrifies me.
I agree with you. I mean, I have two friends from years ago, and they're not vegan. And we were all together in Palm Springs, and I convinced them to go to a vegetarian restaurant, and then they sat down and ordered eggs. And I thought, well, there's nothing wrong with that, is there? And so.
But they don't know. They don't know, and
but people don't want to know.
Exactly.
They don't want to know. You try to tell them, they don't want to know.
Well, and that's why I took the position I took, or the way we told the story with this film, was to try to, and especially with the trailer, you and I know you pointed this out. The trailer is intentionally sort of mysterious. It's intended to get people to want to watch, because it's information people don't want to know. My audience does not want to know this. But if you're absolutely right, in the advertising industry, we are taught and trained to, persuade people to think and act differently every day. And that's something that I would like to be able to do more of, use my experience and my skills and to do that, to make the world a better and safer, kinder place.
And we really have to understand the impact of repetition. I mean, when you think about it, why are companies spending millions, billions of dollars on advertising that most of us try to ignore? I mean, I just have my mute button is worn out. If I'm watching a cable news show, as soon as the commercials come on, I hit the mute button, but it's still getting in there. It's still getting in there. Subliminal communication through repetition and through techniques that they've honed and you are aware of. And so, yeah, I think absolutely. Let me ask you about a challenge, because PETA every year does a Super Bowl commercial where they know it's going to get rejected. And they do brilliant Super Bowl commercials that would normally cost whatever, $5, $10, $15, $20 million to put on. I don't know what it is, but it's millions. And they get rejected, but then there's news stories about them, so they get them shown anyway. Well, this past year, they put together a really beautiful commercial that it was not in any way graphic or risque at all. It showed just a bunch of animals and saying end speciesism was the last line, but it was a cartoon or animation that just showed some beautiful animals, include some farm animals, and then just said end speciesism. It was rejected. So how are we going to, this is why I say this is the most powerful tool every single vegan has, this cell phone that will connect you to Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and Rizzle and, every other platform that's out there. But how are you going to get that out to the people?
Well, first of all, the PSA has to be, and someone's asking, PSA is a public service announcement. It's just an ad. It's an ad, any kind of ad that you see on television that is serving a nonprofit or a cause that isn't supported by some big corporation, like the Smokey fair, only you can prevent forest fires, those kind of advertising or TV commercials are PSAs. I first and foremost, it takes money. That's really what it does. It takes money to be able to put them together. And then it's, getting it out on the media, money to put it on the air, put it as pre-roll, especially with social media now. It's a lot easier to do, but it's really about, from my perspective, it's about money and resources. I think PETA has, and I'm a huge supporter of PETA. I actually was considering working for them at one point. I think that they've done amazing things, but I think they are an example of sometimes rubbing people the wrong way, people that aren't ready to hear their message. And so I'm guessing, I did not know that they made a commercial every year that got rejected, but I'm guessing that's
very clever commercials, very funny commercials. Sometimes
interesting.
Funny. This one was just really heartfelt, and it just made me realize that the carnage prejudice that exists there, that you can't even show an animation about all these animals, an eagle. Excuse me, my dog is barking. I'll let you speak for a second. Go ahead.
I was going to say, and Jason, you may have something to say about this as well. It really comes down to, with advertising, also branding. And unfortunately, the brand that PETA has with a lot of people is more negative.
Well, you know what? I'm going to jump in here. I really want to jump in because I'm a fierce defender of PETA. I've been with PETA since 1980, and none of us would be here if it wasn't for PETA.
Agreed.
They are they are on the tip of the spear. They started it, and they're so wildly effective with their campaigns where you can click and just hit Y, which I do like 3 times a day, and send a message.
Me too.
So I always say, let's not criticize PETA because, all spokes in the wheel. Listen, I was shamed into going vegan. Okay, I was a news anchor at KCAL TV, which is a local station here in California, in Los Angeles, working on the Paramount lot. And I was a vegetarian, but I ate dairy. And a guy walked into my studio, and I did an interview with him. I wish I had the date. I think it was like 24 years ago, 24 years ago. Anyway, he had just been on Oprah. He had a book called Mad Cowboy. He was a 4th-generation cattle rancher who got very ill and made a pact with God. And he said, God, if you get me out of this alive, this surgery, I'll reveal the secret horrors of my industry. He went on Oprah. She said, he told about all the horrors that we know, just the horrors. And she said, famously, that just stopped me cold from eating another burger. The cattleman sued her. She had to move her show to Texas for a while. She won. And then he became famous for 15 minutes, as it were. Great guy, still amazing activist today. I did the interview with him. He told me all about the horrors and our viewers. And then he came up to my cubicle afterwards and he said, hey, with his publicist, a very fierce publicist, Mar Neerlin. And they came up to my cubicle. They said, hey, we hear you're a vegetarian. I said, yes. They said, do you eat dairy? And I kind of hung my head because he had just explained babies ripped from their mothers, everything. I said, yes. They went like this. Liquid meat, right to my nose. Liquid meat. I went vegan at that moment. If they had said to me, well, we think maybe you should consider dairy alternatives, I might not have heard it. They shame me. Boom. I am so grateful for them. And I always laugh. When I see them at liquid meat because it was a truth bomb that they dropped on me. And so I think that I love your approach. I do. I think your approach in terms of getting people in the tent, using these sophisticated techniques, but sometimes a direct truth bomb also works. You know what I mean?
Yes. And it's different for everyone. And I want to be clear. I'm a huge PETA supporter. I have donated to them for years. I would never diss them. Yeah. When I talk about branding, I talk about in the world with people who don't know PETA and who are not vegetarians or vegans and how they see it. And that the reason you were asking about, like, why would they reject their commercials? My guess, and I have no idea, I know nothing about what goes into the choices of Super Bowl commercials, is that they are controversial. which is why I think it's important for filmmakers like myself to put films out there and also to create advertising like I want to do that is coming from a different voice that's telling the same message but in a different way so that it doesn't get banned or barred. We're all, to me, we're all on the same team. We're all trying to, create the same outcome, and everybody is affected and everybody is touched and changed by different messages. I think they're all valid and important.
Well, I think this has been a very, very fascinating conversation. John Holton says, the liquid meat line, though I understand the intent behind it now, it is so nonsensical and illogical to non-vegans. It kept me from researching veganism further for years. Don't use it. Okay, John, it worked for me, but we don't have to use it ever again. I don't care. I'm not married to it. I'm already vegan, 23 years as a result. But look, different spokes. So many vegans spend time debating what's the best. Everybody should do what they're inspired to do, and it comes together as a web of energy and communication. I wonder, Varun, who is an amazing behind-the-scenes magician back there, are there any questions, Varun? Because we see a lot of comments. I'm wondering if there are any questions for the filmmakers or for Tiger from Austin Farm Sanctuary. And by the way, he's going to scroll them up. By the way, the fact that you're in Texas is fantastic. I'm on the board of the Rowdy Girl Sanctuary, and we're doing the Rancher Advocacy Program Summit, where we are helping ranchers and farmers, at least providing options. I can't say we're actually helping them right now in the sense that they've transitioned and they're making millions producing oat milk, but what we're doing is having discussions with thought leaders and experts from around the world and coming up with an infrastructure that will allow them to make the change. And it's a work in progress. Susan, as a woman, please stop endorsing the raping of female cows. Please remove sustainable milk from your film. Keeping this is supporting the dairy industry. Okay, let's go there, Susan.
Okay, I do not think there's anything in my film that endorses the raping of female cows. I could not be more against that. I'm honestly not sure where the sustainable milk line is coming from. What is in the film is Jim talking about, he encourages people to go to their local farmers markets and to support the farms there. I don't support one or the, I don't support that. That is his opinion. It is in the film. It is the part that we've been talking about, considering editing and a different ending. But as I've been saying all along, the feedback I've gotten from tons of non-vegans that have seen this film and chosen to give up dairy as a result, both Jason and Tiger have said, is that by giving them these options, people are choosing to give up milk. I have never said and will never say that that dairy is humane. That is not my belief at all, and that is not what I'm saying in the film. And I don't endorse. I don't endorse the raping of female cows anywhere in the film or in life.
Suffice it to say that this is an early screening. And yes, we're talking about it, and you're taking the feedback. And if the message is convoluted and you are willing to adjust it, then that solves that issue.
Absolutely.
And, because we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, because this is a powerful film, and whatever reduces the most suffering, if we can tweak it to make it clear that no dairy is good dairy. And that is a very tiny proportion of the film. I would say it's maybe 30, 45 seconds. Then exactly. let's tweak it and move on and use the great broken parts. David Alex says, do you think we can get schools and pressure them enough worldwide to get our points across? After all, school is to educate. So the hidden truths of industry should be exposed. Otherwise, kids are not being given truths, which is morally wrong. Susan, I guess that goes back to you.
So that's a really good question, and something I'd be happy to be part of. It's a much bigger nut to crack, in my opinion, because schools and my school teacher friends have told me many times how they are forced to open milk for students, whether they are lactose intolerant or not. That goes back to the FDA and the US government. I mean, this is here in this country. I don't know about other countries, but there were contracts instated long ago in order to keep the dairy industry profitable. So that's to me a much bigger question and problem, something I would happily be a part of with if we were able to get this kind of information into the school system. And if somebody knows how to do that, I would love for them to contact me and work with them.
Well, another thing is that, would you consider an ending focus on climate impact of dairy? That's Anita Crimes, the founder of the Save Movement. Thank you for that question, Anita.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I had a limited time frame and a limited budget when I first made this film, but there's a lot that wasn't in it that is really important. It has to do with dairy. Climate impact is definitely a big part of it. So absolutely, I'm happy to look into that as well.
Excellent. So here we go. We've got a question. How will you get big groups of people to see this film?
Well, I'm looking into distribution. So I'm hoping to get it on a streaming platform soon. If anybody out there has any connections with Netflix or other distribution platforms, please let me know. We're also starting here in Austin. We're going to start some outdoor screenings. Actually, we're doing one next month at Austin Farm Sanctuary. So if anyone's in Texas or the Austin area, they are welcome to join us there. But really, mostly, I'm really hoping to get this distributed soon so that anyone can see it that wants to, and people can share it with their non-vegan friends and family, which is really the audience for this film.
Yeah, any plans for a future rescreening on Mother's Day? Oh, that's interesting.
I love that idea. Yeah, absolutely. I would love to.
Now, I want to ask a question because this has always perplexed me. And again, I do have a lot of experience in the advertising world, just from my personal background. My father was in advertising. What are the secret ingredients that make commercials able to hit those points of family values, patriotism, keeping up with the Joneses, masculinity, femininity, good mothering, all these things that they insert into these commercials that have nothing to sell a product that has absolutely nothing to do with any of it. Any of it. Could be a belt, it could be a car, it doesn't have anything to do with, we've seen so many commercials with a car. If you're a good parent, you're going to drive this particular car. Safety aside, they're pulling heartstrings. What is that secret ingredient, and how can we use it? And maybe Jason, you'd like to hit that.
I was going to say, it's really, to me, it's about branding, but I'm going to let Jason talk about it a little bit.
I think it's branding too, but but people want to hear what they want to hear, and you can satisfy a lot of things with different people because everybody's different, right? So if you kind of throw something in there that relates to one certain thing, people grab onto that. Just like this film, for me, I grabbed onto the mother. I grabbed onto how things were done that helped me change the way I thought. I think that goes a long way with advertising too. It's like you put it out there and you find something that, we all have emotions and feelings. If it's emotional and it touches base, then it's you connect the two from something that somebody needs or wants to an emotional connection, and there you have it.
Yeah, one of the big skills or the parts of advertising that we all do in this industry is you take two seemingly non-related things and you find a common denominator and you connect them that way. That's it's a very simplified version of what we do, but that is what we do. And in this case, it was the motherhood and dairy. I think what you're talking about, like what car commercials that make people feel like it's sexy and cool, or sneakers or whatever it is, they connect it, they find that connective tissue, and create a brand that makes people want to be a part of that. I think that's true for this movement as well. Like for a long time, it really wasn't cool to be vegan. Not that I ever cared. Like I said, I became a vegetarian when I was 9, and the only other vegetarian I knew was my weird hippie aunt and my babysitter. And there was nothing to eat when we went out to restaurants. My mother, who's probably listening to me talk about this right now, refused to make separate meals. So I learned how to make my own, which is great. I learned how to make my own meal to go along with whatever she was making. I'm thrilled that it's more in now to be vegetarian and vegan, but I think we could do even more for veganism and just animal advocacy to make it, and I think that's happening. I think there's a lot of amazing organizations and brands out there that are doing it. I think Live Kindly has done a wonderful job of making people really, and the Dodo and a lot of other platforms that are showing people that animals are just like us. And I think that to me is a big hook.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that we're getting to the end of this. We've had an hour conversation. We've got 4 minutes. So why don't we get final thoughts, maybe 30 seconds from each one of you. Starting with Jason.
Well, I will say this, I'm really proud to be part of this film. It definitely changed the way I think, how I feel, and how I actually live. I'm really grateful for Susan to bring me on board with this. I'm happy to be part of this community, to keep learning and to keep getting better. Baby steps, but I think we all can do it. I think we can get there, and it's, I'm really happy to be a part of this.
Yes, well, thank you. And thank you for being a part of it and bring your amazing skills to the movement. Thank you. Tiger.
I echo what Jason said. I really appreciate Susan involving Austin Farm Sanctuary with this. It's been a really cool project. And again, the whole point is to show people what's out there, what's happening. And you brought up sobriety. This is much like sobriety. Part of sobriety is admitting there's a problem. And the first step is admitting there's a problem. And once you find there's a problem, then you start addressing it. And because of Susan, I think that's going to happen for a lot of people. So I appreciate it.
And Susan?
I want to say wow to both of those comments. I'm incredibly grateful to everyone who has helped me with this film. I want everyone to know that is watching and their comments are heard, and I appreciate all the feedback, and I'm happy and excited to improve on what we've done, and my goal is to do more. Like I said, I would love to get this out there in an ad sometime soon, and I'm open to all input and comments, and I appreciate everybody's support.
Well, I would just like to say that I know, as somebody who has done documentaries and been in the media world for years, that sometimes it's hard to open your mind to saying, okay, yeah, I could do this, I could do that. And it takes a lot of courage and a lot of confidence and just a good heart. So thank you, Susan, for being open to adjust your message, to clarify it, to be able to encompass every single calf and cow out there. And I just want to say that we do, as a person who has been in news media and who's a vegan activist and runs a vegan nonprofit, UnChained news media operation, we do need to get a sophisticated message that is as sophisticated as the commercials that promote meat and dairy out there. And I think Susan and her team and Jason are a really good, incredible, priceless resource to make that happen, because you have to have the touch, you have to have the knowledge, you have to have the expertise. It is an art form combined with a science. And so I look forward to both of you down the road bringing those incredible skills, which are so hard to find amongst vegans and people who want to make the world better for animals. I look forward to you using those skills to send this message out there. So thank you so much. And thanks, of course, to the SAVE movement for allowing us to have this conversation. And I want to thank everybody who watched. Dialectics, argument and counter argument to reach a higher understanding of the given subject matter. That's what we're all about. Communication and Vegan World 2026. Okay, talk to you soon.
Thank you so much, Jane. Thank you all.
Bye-bye.